stimulus levels. It begins by identifying wasteful and duplicative programs. It begins by agencies that are doing the same thing as their neighboring agency, making sure that we are reducing those areas of waste in government that are costing us over $100 billion a year. It begins by changing our policy when it comes to our fiscal system, where we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in interest payments that we weren't before. It deals with going back and eliminating programs that have been created by this government. We have got to make sure that we aren't increasing the burden on future generations. And if we grow our economy, if we create policies that will actually invigorate the growth and economic engines of this nation, then we will be able to lower the debt, we'll be able to balance the budget, and bring ourselves out of the deficit year after year, because we've got a strong and revitalized economy. That's what we've got to do. But it starts with the first rule of holes. Quit digging.
Mr. Gardner, Ms. Martin.
You know, when I first came to Congress, one of the things that I did with another group of freshman small business owners was to demand that we reinstitute pay-as-you-go rules, which means that if you cut taxes or you have a new government program, you have to find some place in the budget to cut. I've also introduced a Targeted Deficit Reduction Act, which requires agencies to reduce their deficit, to meet certain deficit reduction goals. Such things as eliminating travel for government employees. And I think that the government needs to take a cue from the private sector that uses teleconferencing. I introduced legislation that was passed with a Republican colleague of mine, because yes, we do have to work together, which would have, and actually did this, it passed in the House and the Senate, which requires that all states that haven't used their earmarked transportation money return it to the Treasury. It's over 300 projects that were never built. Well, then that money has to go back to the Treasury. You know, I have done things like vote against the President's budget, contrary to the latest attack ad against me, because I thought it was too big. I also voted against half of the appropriations bills because I think every agency needs to be demanded to find deeper cuts in their budgets.
Ms. Martin. Okay, we're going to move into the second half, the second Q&A segment of the program, and this is the one in which we're going to loosen the rules. Our panelists can ask questions directed, not the rule that is going to cost us time. Our panelists can ask questions directed specifically at the candidate of their choice. Candidates, these are direct questions. Let's deal with them with direct answers. The shortest possible answer that cuts right to the most important point. And know that during this segment, I have the option of offering other candidates time to respond to the question and to your answer. The option. I may not do that with every question. Let's see where it goes. First question, Tom Livingston.
Thank you, Dick Keith. And this question will go to Representative Markey. Do you believe that your voting record represents the position of your constituents?
Yes, I absolutely do. I would say that I have held the line on fiscal issues. I have voted against raising the debt ceiling. I voted against the President's budget. I voted against half of the appropriations bills, and I have demanded pay-as-you-go legislation on education debt. I've also been a proud supporter of the health care reform bill, which people who have pre-existing conditions to allow children, like many of us in this room who have young college grads, to stay on their parents' policy until age 26, which is one thing that I fought for, which will allow small businesses to get a 35% tax credit if they choose to cover their employees, which will allow insurance companies to write policies across state lines. I think these are very important, and I think they represent the wishes of the 4th Congressional District. I'm proud of my record.
Well, I wouldn't be running for Congress if I was proud of your record. time. In fact, here's a Frank's Mail piece that was sent courtesy of the U.S. taxpayer that says, Congress can only spend $1 if it saves $1 somewhere else. In the first 50 days that my opponent was in Congress, she spent $1 billion an hour for a total of $1.2 trillion in new spending. I don't believe that your voting record is reflective of this district. I don't think Dr. Pelosi is the answer to our health care solution. I believe we can create stronger opportunities without higher taxes, without a health care bill that increases taxes and fees by $525 billion, without costing seniors their health care insurance, that allows us to make our decisions instead of a government. It is my belief that the people of this district believe that the government should work for them, and that we should not in turn have to work for the government.
Mr. Moskowitz, Mr. Aiden, either of you have anything, 1 point to add to this question?
I haven't had health insurance in 8 years. I haven't gone to the doctor in almost that amount of time. I just looked at my costs for next year. I still can't afford it. So, though I see the good parts of that bill, I want to repeal it because it needs to be broken up. It needs to be broken up and specifically address affordability, accessibility, quality of care, and philanthropy, something we never look into.
Quickly, Mr. Aiden, please.
Sure. Rasmussen poll in August of this year stated that 67% of the political class believes we're going in the right direction. And yet 84% of the voters feel that we're going in the wrong direction.
That's a point we'll go back to at the end of the hour. Get your input on. The next question from John Griffith. Ms. Griffith.
This question is for Mr. Gardner. Many members of Congress were accused of having very little knowledge of what was actually in the health care bill. Now that we've learned all of the hidden things within it, do you support its repeal?
Thank you. I support the repeal of the health care bill, and in its place we put in real solutions that will actually do what it was intended to do, and that is to lower the cost of health care. I believe we need to repeal the bill and put in real solutions in its place. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, said that you have to pass the health care bill to know what's in the health care bill. Now, if you look at the 1099 form provisions in the health care bill, I guess the only question for people who voted for the bill is this. You either read the bill and you voted for it even though the 1099 provision was in it, or you read the bill and decided you had to vote for it because of the 1099 provision. You either agreed with it and voted for it, or you voted for the bill because you didn't know it was in there.
That was a yes.
Yeah.
Let's go down the road. Ms. Martin.
It's
Yes?
my job.
Yes, you would repeal the
No, I would not repeal the health care bill. There are many, many good provisions in the health care bill that are good and that are necessary. There are other things that need to be fixed, and the 1099 issue is something that needs to be fixed. In fact, last month I sent a letter to the leadership and I said this is something that we have to work on. But the fact of the matter is, let's not forget about the really positive things in the bill. It is estimated in the next 20 years, and most of these savings are in the 10 to 20 year time frame, that the bill, by covering everyone, looking at cost containment, that we will be reducing the deficit by $1.3 trillion, probably the largest deficit ever. Just last week, a woman came up to me, she had breast cancer. Her insurance just cut her off. They said, I'm sorry, you've reached your lifetime limit. Well, guess what? That can't happen anymore, and I'm proud of this bill. Again, there's things that need to be fixed. You can't get 435 members of Congress to agree on everything. You know that, Corey, being in the legislature, you don't agree with 100% of the bill, but it's a good, solid start to reforming our broken health care system.
Yes? or no, vote to repeal the health care? Yes, you would. Mr. Hayden?
Yes.
This question is for Ms. Markey. You discussed on your website, markeyforcongress.com, your view on higher education. On your site, you mentioned you're in favor of recent legislation to help support both current and potential students in higher education. However, it's no secret that Coloradans as a majority do not prioritize higher ed as it sounds like you do. In fact, Colorado is near the very bottom in funding all education, K through 12 and beyond. So please, tell me how you plan to go beyond that recent legislation and champion higher education in a state that historically is opposed to such increases.
Well, I think one of the best things we did this year, and it's a very little known bill, it's called the Student Higher Ed Act, which is by taking out the middleman in the student loan process, we were able to put more money into higher education. This bill, by running all the loans through the Department of Education, saves $87 billion over 10 years. $10 billion of that went to reduce the deficit. The rest of the money went back into higher education in the form of lower interest rates on student loans, and also increased Pell Grants and Perkins Loans programs. And I think that we need to continue to do everything we can to decrease the interest rate on student loans. You know, when I went to college, I didn't take out a student loan. I worked my way through college, but college was cheap then, and you could do that. And I know that we need to do everything we can so that our students are not graduating. I talked to a couple of CSU students the other day. They'll be graduating with $40,000 worth of debt. So again, whatever we can do to make sure that we keep those interest rates low.
It is a valid question. It has a significant impact here in northern Colorado and a significant impact on future generations. So let's spread it around. Mr. Gardner.
Well, thank you. And again, the question of higher education funding is important. In the state legislature, I voted against a bill that granted the power to the universities to increase tuition dramatically. In the state legislature, I also worked with my colleagues to develop an idea that would have provided significant funding resources for our higher education system in the state. I'm a Colorado State graduate as well. And I'm concerned about the opportunities that will be available for graduates and people who are hoping to go to school. But when was the last time that you heard government take over a program to save money?
Mr. Hayden.
I was on the CSU campus last week after about 20 years, and I was absolutely amazed at the millions and millions of dollars that have gone into the changes on that campus. This spring, I'm in that unenviable position of actually having 2 students that are of college age. And since I haven't had the ability to sock away thousands of dollars, we've had that discussion in our home. And one of my sons is planning on actually taking college courses online. Another one's currently enrolled in an apprentice program. And if colleges and higher education institutions want to continue to remain competitive with the alternatives, they're going to have to examine their operations.
Mr. Watson.
Well, a couple things on that. One, I'm going to need people of higher education in the Colorado energy revolution, so you must stay in there. The other thing is, why are these costs going up in the first place? Is it because we're building fancy buildings? You know, if you build it, they will come? Is that what we're doing? Is there any way to make this more efficient? Whether it's having more classes or whatever we have to do, why don't we look into making things efficient? And if we are that hard up with money, why don't we look into, use the research and development groups at school, look into the idea of legalizing drugs, prostitution, gambling, and see what kind of benefit you can get out of that. I think it's a funny idea. Have you ever looked into it?
Yes or no answer for Mr. Waskowitz on legalizing drugs and prostitution for his tax bill. Mr. Hayden. Yes or no?
No.
Mr. Gardner.
No.
Next question, Christine Campbell.